Welcome to the American Medical Certification Association, working together to develop quality allied healthcare professionals. AMCA continues to provide free study material and practice tests, free job placement assistance, free instructor testing, along with comprehensive reporting and our top quality customer service. The AMCA has 11 certification exams, 5 NCCA credit exams, and 3 career advancement programs. Choose the AMCA for your national certification needs.
CIW is a leading provider of information technology skills to students and professionals around the world. CIW is recognized in more than 90 countries as an industry standard in IT education and certification by academic institutions, governments, businesses, and professionals alike. As a global leader in IT education, CIW has educated more than 1 million students and awarded more than 160,000 professional certifications throughout thousands of high schools, colleges, universities, and learning centers worldwide. We prepare students for careers in web development, web design, network and database administration, cybersecurity, applications development, software development, digital marketing, graphic design, and video animation. CIW, where technology careers are built.
F.A. Davis is an independent, family-owned publisher of educational solutions for the nursing and health science professions. We are dedicated to listening to our customers and to developing innovative products empowered by the technology that is changing how students are learning, instructors are teaching, and professionals are practicing. Our entire team is dedicated to meeting your needs in key programs. These programs include medical assisting, phlebotomy, massage therapy, IV therapy, emergency medical services, medical terminology, and anatomy and physiology. We measure our success by your successes. Call on us to learn more and enjoy CETI.
Aceware Systems is proud to be a sponsor of the 2021 SETI Conference. For over 30 years, we've worked alongside you to provide the tools you need for course management and registration. We understand the unique needs and challenges of non-credit programs. We know you need software as flexible and customizable as the programs you develop for students and industry. Contact us to see Aceware in action. When you're ready for a change in a software partner, we're ready to help you grow your program. Enjoy the conference.
Many have heard the saying, people are your most valuable asset. That is a fact. And HRCP, the leader in human resources preparation, is looking for additional colleges and universities willing to teach HR certification prep courses. This will open up doors to many in your area looking to advance their HR career. The HRCP Turnkey course will prepare them to take any HR certification exam. HRCP works with many educational institutions who teach our materials on their campus. We have a shining reputation in the industry that comes from 25 years of innovative exam preparation. Want to partner with us to help prepare students, increase revenue, and fill a need in your area? Simply log on or give us a call today.
Welcome to the American Medical Certification Association, working together to develop quality allied healthcare professionals. AMCA continues to provide free study material and practice tests, free job placement assistance, free instructor testing, along with comprehensive reporting and our top quality customer service. The AMCA has 11 certification exams, 5 NCCA credit exams, and 3 career advancement programs. Choose the AMCA for your national certification needs.
CIW is a leading provider of information technology skills to students and professionals around the world. CIW is recognized in more than 90 countries as an industry standard in IT education and certification by academic institutions, governments, businesses, and professionals alike. As a global leader in IT education, CIW has educated more than 1 million students and awarded more than 160,000 professional certifications throughout thousands of high schools, colleges, universities, and learning centers worldwide. We prepare students for careers in web development, web design, network and database administration, cybersecurity, applications development, software development, digital marketing, graphic design, and video animation. CIW, where technology careers are built.
Many have heard the saying, people are your most valuable asset. That is a fact. And HRCP, the leader in human resources preparation, is looking for additional colleges and universities willing to teach HR certification prep courses. This will open up doors to many in your area looking to advance their HR career. The HRCP Turnkey course will prepare them to take any HR certification exam. HRCP works with many educational institutions who teach our materials on their campus. We have a shining reputation in the industry that comes from 25 years of innovative exam preparation. Want to partner with us to help prepare students, increase revenue, and fill a need in your area? Simply log on or give us a call today.
Stephanie, if you can help by turning my video on, it says the host doesn't want me to let my video start. I'd appreciate that. There we go. Thank you, Stephanie. Well, good morning, folks. My name's Kevin Smith. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ProTrain, and we are excited to have you here for day number 3 of the Continuing Education Training Institute, or SETI for short. Today, we've got an exciting briefing that's going to talk about training a multi-generational workforce in manufacturing. It's a topic I think that you'll find both very informative and very entertaining. There's a lot of great insights that we're going to be able to provide about this today, and my co-presenter Mike Lee will absolutely amaze and dazzle you, I am sure. Let's go to the next slide, please. I want to take time out to thank all of our great platinum, gold, and silver sponsors, for which, if they're not helping sponsor this event, nobody gets it for free. Core Education, our own ProTrain, CompTIA, Centigrade Student Registration Systems, ACEware Registration Systems, FA Davis, the American Medical Certification Association, HRCP, and our partners over at CIW. Once again, folks, thank you very much for your continued support for SETI and ProTrain over the number of years that we have been presenting in this forum. Next chart, please. This session is being recorded. The links to the presentations will also be made available after SETI concludes, and we'll have those sent out to all of you who attended. Even if you didn't attend, but you registered and your boss told you to go cover down for him or her in a meeting, not to worry. You'll get a copy of the session, and you'll be able to refer to that at any time. Attendees that join us today will automatically be muted, and that way you don't have to worry about dogs barking in the background or people running lawnmowers next to your house or wherever you're at. We won't be able to hear any of that, and that's a good thing. Please use the Q&A box, which you'll see located on the lower navigation bar, for all your questions, and we'll get to your questions at the end of the session, I promise. Any unanswered questions, we'll have a response when we send the recording out, okay? For social media, please use the hashtag SETI 2022 and share shamelessly with all your friends and buds, okay? And we'd ask you also to consider joining the SETI alumni group on LinkedIn. Last look, we've got close to 150 people now in the SETI alumni group. I just go in there and accept you, and you're in it. It offers another great place for collaboration after SETI has ended, for educators and industry leaders to get together and talk about great things. And we hope that you'll continue to use that resource. Next chart. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of Mike and Kevin background, so you know where we grew up and what we're going to bring to today's session. We're going to talk about the manufacturing industry's problem statement and what is going on, and how they came up with a survey with industry at large to provide some rather illuminating data points that we'll provide to you today. And then we're going to show how one of the viable options is knowledge transfer, and how accelerated knowledge transfer, and we will demonstrate that can help provide a very viable solution with a very high return on investment. And then potential next steps for anybody who's interested in getting more information. And then, as I said before, we will have the Q&A at the end of the session. Next chart, please. As I said before, my name's Kevin Smith. For 30 years, I played Army logistician. Very pleased and privileged to command at every level, from lieutenant to colonel. I'm a combat veteran out of Iraq, 2006, 2007. A lot of my background is logistics and a lot of training. I used to be responsible for all the logistics training in the Army, everything in the Quartermaster Ordnance Transportation Corps, everything that was in classroom and everything that was distance learning. So I really got to know a lot of what right looks like. I had the ADDIE model beaten in my head by some of the finest training people on the face of the planet in the Army. And I think I've taken a lot of those lessons learned and applied that to how we can not only help soldiers in their day-to-day learning and credentialing, but help people who are just trying to find the right types of credentialing to get the right type of job or perform better in their job. I'd like now to introduce my co-host, Mike Lee. Mike, please.
Thanks so much, Kevin. And little background with me, 30 years in the Navy, retired Navy captain, but also a lot of industry experience. So back in the 1980s, I was recruited by Ford Motor Company by the CEO as part of a Tiger team to turn Ford around. And one of the things we did was introduce virtual training to the automotive industry. And so what we laid down back then has progressed to where we are today. That being said, I had stints where I was back on active duty in the Navy, and we created capabilities that you're going to see today as far as the accelerated knowledge transfer. So it goes both ways. It's not just military, it's manufacturing, it's all areas of industry, and it'll be neat to kind of show you some of those applications as we go forward.
As you might wonder, Mike and I actually get along for 51 of 52 weeks until Army meets Navy for football, and then it's all gloves are off. So, but Mike and I have known each other for a number of years, and I enjoy sharing time with him today with you all. Back in November, AARP and the National Association for Manufacturers released a white paper, and it was entitled Multi-Generational Teams in Manufacturing, Industry Trends and Best Practices for Leveraging Age Diversity. Well, why did they do that? Well, they did that because they know that the manufacturing industry is experiencing a very pressing double-edged problem. It struggles with filling new positions all the time, with 5% of the existing workforce already beyond retirement eligible age right now today. An additional 20% will reach retirement age within the next decade. So they know that they got a lot of tribal wisdom that's going to leave, and they've got to replace that with some type of way to continue to recruit and train. So they surveyed manufacturers across the United States. It was a voluntary survey, okay, sent out to over 1,200 manufacturers, okay, and 212 manufacturers volunteered to participate, okay, and they ranged in size from little small mom and pop manufacturing places of less than 50 people to some of the largest manufacturers in the United States who have over 2,500 employees. Overall, the manufacturing surveyed and were interviewed appeared very aware and concerned about this aging workforce issue. However, very few firms indicated that they had taken any action to date. Next chart. So before we get into the briefing here, in the chat, okay, how many of our attendees today have potential B2B or B2C training clients that might be faced with this multi-generational training problem to help sustain or grow their new workforce? Go ahead and reply in the Q&A or the chat box and let us know your feelings there. While you're doing that, go ahead and go to the next slide, Mike. Okay. In the survey, 78% of the 212 firms that agreed to participate all said that they were very concerned about more and more workers approaching retirement age, and they knew they had to adapt to ensure that all the valuable technical expertise was not lost when the baby boomers start migrating out of their shop floors. Okay. More importantly, 86% said they didn't have any strategy at all today at all to train and recruit, but they knew that they had to have something in place that must have people job ready in a multi-generational team to succeed into the future. Firms replied back and suggested that they knew that they could build a strong team culture. And if they could do that, they could promote the transferring of skills and knowledge from the older guys to the younger guys, okay? And at the same time, they wanted to try to be able to boost innovation and productivity of the existing workforce. 75% in the survey knew that a training solution had to address the following aspects of knowledge transfer. One, on-the-job training with shadowing had to somehow be mimicked, if not a protocol within the training regimen. Two, they had to have a solid process for manufacturing documentation, the steps, the procedures, the quality things, the safety things. All of that documentation could not be lost, okay? They wanted mentoring wherever possible because they watched the day-to-day mentoring going on, and they wanted that to be able to still happen in some type of a training solution for this next generation. Only 5% of all those surveyed were currently employing any type of simulated virtual performance learning whatsoever. So while 60% of the companies believe that they're successfully managing multi-generational teams, 10% said that they're struggling, and 30% were not focused at all on manufacturing and managing in a multi-generational team forum. That's a real startling fact there, okay? So the results from the survey and information collected during all these interviews with manufacturer firms show that in order to be successful, these multi-generational teams have to use targeted knowledge transfer. They've got to do that. They have to have the right types of recruitment. They're going to have the right type of staff feedback as well to mitigate what inevitably will become continued staff turnover, and at the same time trying to enhance innovative means within their work floor, okay? Boost company morale and maintain high motivation so that people want to stay there once they're trained. They don't just want to learn and then go. Next chart.
Kevin, you're kind of pointing out there the needs for knowledge transfer. And what that really boils down to is, in so many cases out there, the processes that they're addressing, there's deficiencies that are caused by lack of understanding. And so how do we help folks understand very rapidly? And that's through the knowledge transfer process. And when we talk about understanding itself, there's no substitute for, we used to look at it as OJT at the time, for showing them. And that works great if you can work one-on-one. But when you talk about wide networks, how can you get that best training solution across this broadband, and how can you make it affordable? And that's where virtual training comes in, as far as these capabilities that we're sharing with you today. And then once you have that training, how do you recall it? Because so many of today's folks that are out there, I think almost everybody uses YouTube at home. If you've got a process you're not familiar with, let me go take a look at it, see how it's done. But how do you access that when you're actually out there in production, in the maintenance line itself? And so there's real need out there for knowledge transfer. When we talk about being a viable solution, the accelerated knowledge transfer process enables you to quickly identify problems and address them with these tools. So with these tools themselves, you can address the training needs, but also the tech data needs, the technical instructions as you go along, all at the same time. When you talk about subject matter experts, as far as they have the best knowledge, the quickest way, the best way, the most reliable way to perform a process, this enables them to actually share those capabilities. So I mentioned before, being with Ford, in my past, I would go out and benchmark those best processes. But then the big question was, how do we get that across the entire organization? And back in those days, there were 5,500 dealers across the country. So how can we get them to understand those best of the best processes? When we talk about digitally interactive themselves, this process itself enables the workforce to basically read it, hear it, and see it, and then do it. It ties it all together in this digital format. It's also chunked out there in a kind of bite-sized elements itself. So it's geared for the fastest user or learner, At the same time, it doesn't leave a first-time user behind or a slower person. They can stop it, pause it, play with it as much as they need to work through it. So when you talk about facilitating improvements, these tools themselves are designed for continuous improvement, same-day updates. And overall, I think Kevin kind of touched on it before: cost, readiness, safety. You see those improvements with these, at least a 10-to-1 ROI in the first year. And when you think about the significance, the impact on a workforce out there, it speeds them up, it drives the quality and efficiency that we're looking at. And so today I want to kind of give you a little bit of background and then show you some actual examples. So when we talk about accelerated knowledge transfer, one of the applications we did a number of years ago is with Isuzu as an example. They had an online university. They had basically videos, kind of like YouTube, and they were very good quality. There was nothing wrong with them, but the problem was that technicians wouldn't use them. The reason was that they might learn from them if they took time, but when they're out there on the line, it was too hard for them to try to go back and access this and get exactly the information they needed out of it. And we'll show you how these work as far as driving that. As far as the multimedia approach, again, reading it, hearing it, seeing it, and the do it part is having it out there with you on the line. As far as the segmented approach to that, again, you'll see just how finite it is as far as zeroing in on those areas that may be misunderstood. And so you don't have to watch a long video again and again. You can just watch a certain point of the process as many times as you need to understand it. So again, it's truly interactive for the users. No two people will use these applications at the same speed. So they put a stopwatch to folks that are utilizing it. They'll all come in with different times. Today's environment also enables us to come in with mixed reality. That would be augmented and virtual reality. So the devices they're using can give just instant recognition of where you are in a process and what you might need to know while you're addressing that process. So again, when you think about the mixed reality side of it, it just boosts the impact of this, makes it easier to get to. And the easier it is for the ultimate learners to access, the more they're going to use it. And we've seen the frequency certain go up. And then on the results side of it, the numbers, the metrics are there to back up everything that we're seeing today. Here's some commercial examples. And on the top row there, you see some examples from aircraft industry and automotive. And then down below there, an example with international paper, petroleum industry. So it doesn't really matter what type of industry that you're in there. If you have processes that need to be understood, this is by far the best way to get those across. When we're looking at automotive example here, just as one for Isuzu, this was engine timing. And you can kind of see in the upper slides or the examples there, it's going into it. It's giving you the text on the left, the audio visual on the right, and it's showing you exactly what you need to have lined up as far as in the engine when you're doing the assembly process itself. The images down at the bottom there show you how you could access something like this. It could be driven by a QR code. It could just be wired in a facility. It could be that you get close to a piece of equipment and your device, your tablet or your smartphone can actually pick it up and work with it. So there again, you see in the center there's an example of starting it by hitting the button there. And that's just a cover slide for what you see in those applications there. And then on the far right is what we call touch, because when they're on the line, a lot of times they don't want to have to start anything up. They just want to touch a component. And that's where we get into the AR and VR and it comes live for them. It's showing them what they need. Here's some examples from international paper. We had that up there before. The slides on the bottom there actually show you core cutting, and that's part of their processes that they do there. And so this enables folks, new hires, to come in and very quickly understand a process that they're working with. The upper images that you see there are showing plant maintenance. So when you talk about plant equipment in that facility, how to work with it, how to overhaul it. So it could be any process from production to maintenance or both, depending on the facility that you're in. When we talk about blending elements all together, obviously training is going to be our first and foremost focus here, but I mentioned the written instructions. It's it's basically embedding those in this. So think of these as not being a video, but actually a library of sorts that has all the references there with you. And then when we talk about safety, if there's certain elements that need to be understood right there on the spot, it gives it to you where it applies. The knowledge capture and transfer side is your subject matter experts as far as bringing in. So every one of these applications incorporates all those elements into that library, as I'm saying. When we talk about embedded solutions, how do we get it out there on the line? We started years ago with PDF technical manuals, and then we've gone to interactive electronic technical manuals now. So whatever the source is, as far as those processes, those instructions for it, this goes into those actual manuals, whatever format they're using. So most would be web-based, but we also have spot hosting. Folks are out in the field, or ships would be a good example there, because you get into areas where they don't have any connectivity in a certain space, and this gives you the ability to have it right there with you. So you're never leaving it behind. It can reside on the device that you have, or it can be broadcast to you. And it's the same applications. It's not a different version of it. It's just how you choose to view it at that time. So when you're thinking, think mobile. So desktops, laptops, tablets, Toughbooks, everything that is programmed in HTML5, so it's using the native browsers that are on those devices. There's nothing executable in it. From the military side, they're very sensitive to that, because they don't want any files in there that could corrupt their systems. And so this way, there's nothing that's a threat to those systems. And when we talk about spot hosting there, we have some of these that are used with RFID tags. So that's where you could approach a piece of equipment, and it's going to ask you what you want to do to it. And it's right there on the device that you have in your hand. So when we talk about benefits, again, as we mentioned, the reading, hearing, seeing, and doing, the capturing of experiential knowledge as far as those subject matter experts. One thing I didn't mention before, though, is when we go through those processes to capture them and turn them into these applications, it does a very thorough scrub of the technical data. So you have procedures that are outlined in instructions, but every time we do this, we catch errors in those instructions. So it cleans everything up at the same time. And our clients love that. As far as when they come away from it, they know it's right. As far as improving consistency, efficiency, and safety, you'll see how these work and give you a chance to judge for yourself in just a minute. Turnaround time on these used to be about 3 to 4 weeks, and it sometimes takes that long. But in most cases, they're turned around within 24 to 48 hours. And the Toyota example we have up there, we participated in a Kaizen event on a Wednesday. We captured it on a Thursday. It was reviewed and finalized on Friday morning. So that's how quickly these can happen. And as you kind of notice there, the cost of them, a lot of them for Toyota, International Paper, Lockheed, each module was like $5 or $6K a piece. So it's, again, it's not very expensive to develop these types of tools. So here's some example results. Several years ago, when Ford was introducing its sync system as far as the infotainment systems in their vehicles, they were getting a lot of complaints because folks that weren't very literate IT speaking were having trouble getting their smartphones to sync up. And so Ford actually put an incentive out there for folks. They said, when we do our after purchase surveys, for every survey that says the dealer showed them how to use it and they didn't have a problem, it's $75 to the dealer. And so we did a little test with this, and we took a couple of dealers just to see how our approach worked. And they led the pack as far as all dealers across North America for those results and surveys. And it was because you could get somebody who was young, but you could also get somebody that was in their 80s, and they could see how to sync up their smartphone, and it was that easy to work with. The Isuzu example there, we had a problem a few years ago where they were introducing a new engine. The president of Isuzu North America said, we've got a problem because the dealers are upset. We're funding them for basically 13 hours worth of labor to remove and replace, but it's taking them 30 to 40 hours to do it. And I asked him at the time, I said, Sean, is there anybody that can do it in 13 hours? And he said, yeah, we've got a guy in Japan, and we have a fellow in San Diego that can both do it in 11 and a half hours. So we got the San Diego expert, SME, into their center, and basically captured and transitioned into this format. and it solved the problem. And they didn't have the expense of doubling their labor on that type of replacement. So it paid for itself instantly. And with Toyota, as I mentioned before, can be very quick as far as the turnaround. So this isn't think of a training company. We're not a training company. This is basically working with your teams, and you're the experts, but helping you transfer that knowledge. So you decide how you want to train, and then we help you with these types of tools in the process. I want to take you now and actually show you some of these examples. So I'm going to come out of the PowerPoint for just a second. And let's take a look here at automotive. So I mentioned Isuzu before. If we went into the timing procedure itself.
Welcome to the 4JJ Fuel Pump Removal and Installation Job Performance Aid, JPA. Through the use of enhanced media, this JPA is designed to highlight and clarify the timing procedures listed in the replacement procedures for the 4JJ fuel pump. The following JPA only covers the timing procedures outlined in the replacement of the fuel pump.
So you see how I can expand the screen or contract it. If I went to contents, and this was the first time I was looking at this, this would actually show you how to navigate with it. So there doesn't have to be somebody that explains how to use this tool. They can very easily figure it out on their own as far as training. Now, when you go to contents, you see the little button over here on the right. We can go in a linear fashion through this. But let's say that a technician was working with this, and somebody did the removal process, and they're coming in and they want to pick it up at the installation process. And this made the difference, by the way, with Isuzu, as far as they had that online university, the technicians weren't using it. And as soon as this was the same content delivered this way, they started using it because it was very easy to get to. So as you go into a step.
The remaining steps in the JPA only address the timing components of the fuel pump installation. For installation steps 1 through 10, refer to fuel supply pump installation.
So I can stop it just a second. I can go and pull up the other references. So that's what I mean as far as a library function. It's all there. And then I can reference that and then go on with the procedure. If I wanted to go through this, it's going to take me through every step of the process as far as the timing goes.
Caution.
And then when we get to the end of this, we built in a recap, and the question here is, did I do everything right? So this is going to hit the high points of what we just covered as far as going through the entire module itself.
To recap, set the engine to top dead center by rotating the crankshaft balancer to top dead center, confirming that the lower timing chain link, yellow link, is at the 6 o'clock position, confirming that the upper timing chain link, blue link, is just past the 12 o'clock position and to the right of the stud at the center of the cylinder head.
Now, the technical information tells you all that, but really seeing it and understanding it makes it so much faster as far as getting to it. So you can kind of see how this works. It makes it easier for them to go through a process. And I want to take you and actually show you some other examples here. We talked about Toyota before, and we did that Kaizen event. And so this takes you into the process.
To the front bumper clear paint protection job performance aid, JPA.
Here are your tools and materials as far as the actual equipment you're going to be using for this process. Microfiber tile was something that came up in the Kaizen event because they had different locations around the country, but there was one that had very few issues as far as contamination under the film that they were putting on these cars. And it turned out in that event, the plant manager said, well, this is what we're using to get around it. So everybody started using this afterwards. So again, it's going to show you the tools you're going to be using. And then you go into the process.
Clean the portion of the vehicle that the film will be applied to. With the film still applied to the backing, roll the backing toward you and under, making sure that you start from the opposite side of the film that is to be applied on the vehicle fur. Caution. As the film is first applied to the bumper, be careful to take your time around the fog light, since it is easy to tear the film in this spot.
So again, it's going to take you through one side of the vehicle and the other. It's going to go all the way through the process. And let's get down to sealing the edges of it.
Finish the installation by sealing all edges with a heat gun and a dry towel. Helpful techniques to employ with the heat gun include keeping it 6 to 8 inches from the film surface, continuously moving it to prevent overheating the film.
One thing to mention here too, there were other measurements in elements of this before we got to this point. So many times you'll be hearing it and seeing it in a video, but you say, did I hear that correctly? You don't have to play it again. You can look over here, and you could if you want to play it again, but you can see the measurements in black and white. They're there with the visuals as you go along. Then let's go to the quality side of this as far as your checks and inspections.
As a last step, carefully inspect all areas of the film for imperfections.
So it's showing you exactly how to use the measurement device. And if you notice here, the film, there's a little bit of a gap there. That's intentional, because if it overlaps, it can snag and pull loose. And you say, well, does it give you any more information than that? If we look here and we go down to the library function and we look for imperfections, here's where your overlap could be. So again, it's a tool that you work with to learn with, but you also use it out on the line. The folks at Toyota basically said, we're training people that have been with us for a while, but they've never done this process before. If they can't do it correctly after using this tool to learn with, then we need to have them do something else. And so that's basically how they look at it as far as these type of materials to work with. So again, I mentioned as far as other tools that you can work with here, chemicals, it's everything is in this. So it would be anything that referenced that process is in this library that we're seeing. And let's take a look at another example here. That was what I showed you there was large format with text on the left, audio visual on the right. Let's take a look at mobile format. So again, it's all HTML5. So I'm playing this on a laptop right now, but you could be viewing either one of these on a tablet, on a smartphone. But with a smartphone, it might be kind of hard to read that with the text on the left. And so
welcome to the front bumper clear paint protection.
What we have here is drop downs for the text, and you can go back and forth as far as playing with it. If I want to go over to the contents here, I can advance myself all the way down to the library function. I can also go over here and just go next through the process in a linear fashion. So again, it's the same content. It's just a question of how you would like to view it. Let's take a look here. And this is, we're going into the aircraft industry, and I'm showing you something here that's a maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility. So this particular one handles Southwest aircraft, Delta aircraft, FedEx, 737s, 57s, 67s. They have a lot of turnover. How do they bring folks, the new hires, up to the speed very quickly? And it's through this tooling that they have here. And literally, they'll have people that have gone through 1 week of training in this format, and then they're basically removing and replacing the interiors on aircraft. So it's they don't spend months training these folks. It's just in time training for what they need to do a process. But the reason I'm sharing this is just to kind of show you that we can get to the technical side of it with these tools, not as simple as the film you saw.
Cut the cable perpendicular to its longitudinal axis. Put the seal boot on the cable. Refer to figure 148. Move the seal boot away from the end of the cable.
And as we go a little further, let's take a look at a mentor.
After trimming the braid, ensure all FOD created during the task is removed from the aircraft.
So we typically have warnings, cautions, and notes in there, so you don't hurt somebody, you don't damage equipment. But also in this case, a subject matter expert says, here's how we like to clean up in the aircraft. And this could be on the floor of the deck of an aircraft itself. Here it's on a table for demonstration purposes, but it's important that they understand all of this as they're going into it. And let's go back here. And let's take a look at this go wrap. the reason I wanted to show you this is in basically going through a facility like this, and I think this was a BP facility, it was going to take over 2 years to do this installation. And so think about the turnover in that type of environment. How do they bring folks up to speed so they understand very quickly?
Welcome to the ViscoWrap installation. Accelerate.
And I'm going to go here and let's see. We'll get ourselves a little further into it.
In certain areas, ensure that ViscoWrap has measure beam remove the release liner in a quick snapping motion. Starting at an edge and using slight tension to the wrap, fold release liner back against itself during wrapping. This angle of removal allows for the liner to smoothly release from the compound.
And if I advance it a little bit here. Okay, so you're seeing how they do the process and how they're using the tool to do this. And reason I wanted to kind of show you this was so that as we go into it, and I'll come back to it just a second. If we needed to change something in one of these videos, then we could go in and let's see here, just a second. I'll just give you one of these examples.
Poles shall be installed so that moisture does not become trapped behind the ViscoWrap.
So if there was an element of this, we could actually refilm it and just add it to the file structure there, and it overwrites the old information that's in there. So again, it makes it very easy to update. These are small enough as far as the file sizes that they can be emailed to locations, or they can download them very quickly. So again, it's an easy process as far as creating these tools, but also keeping them up. And let's take a look here with A&R Logistics.
Welcome to A&R. You have joined an organization.
They wanted tools that could basically take new hires in and show them the entire process that they're going through in a plant, but they're going to be working one area of that. So how do they dial into their area? So I just want to show you the interaction here. And some of it may be working with software. So I'm showing you a lot of hands-on work, but what if we're actually getting into the software side of it too? So just show you an example here.
That has established an outstanding reputation for safety, quality, integrity, and respect. We believe that each employee contributes directly to our growth and success, and we hope you will take pride in being a member of our team. This video will help you understand our business process so that you can understand how each of us have a role in doing it right. At A&R Logistics.
So again, if I let this play, it's going to basically show how she's taking an order in and she's interacting with the software as far as all the data entry there. And that's just one of the jobs in the plant. But let's say that I wanted to go to this and go to the packaging line itself.
The packaging process is a modern, automated process which requires every step to be synchronized. Maintenance team members ensure that if any part of the process has issues, problems are immediately addressed, and operators continuously monitor the process and make adjustments.
And again, this is a more of a familiarization training for hiring into the plant itself. We'll go into more detail with each of these areas as far as how to operate the individual machines, as you saw before. So let me show you another example here. And this is where I want to try to take you to a medical application side. We have this across 14 technical colleges in Georgia, and this is addressing certified nurse assistant skills. So there's basically 22 skills that certified nurse assistants are tested on in the state of Georgia for certification. And so they go to one of the technical schools, they pay for the course, they take the course, and then they're tested on basically about 5 of these skills. And they don't know which ones it's going to be. So if they don't pass that test, then they have to go through the whole training process again. So with that being the case, the schools themselves are a cooperative group, and they said, how about we have a course that basically has it addresses each of those skill sets. And these would normally, before we came along, would be taught in a lab. They're still taught in the lab, but the students also have this tool to learn with, to study with away from labs. So somebody may get these very quickly, but another person may take them a little bit longer. So before this, they didn't really have that take home. So I just give you an example here.
Hello, Mrs. Smith, it's Debbie. May I come in?
So this is basically using the transfer belt, and this go forward a few steps here.
Ensure bed is at a safe level. Check hand or lock. Provide instructions to enable client to assist in transfer, including prearranged signal to alert when to begin standing. Stand facing client, positioning self to ensure safety of student candidate and client during transfer. Count to 3 to alert client to begin standing. On signal, gradually assist client to stand by grasping transfer belt on both sides with an upward grasp and maintain stability of client's legs by standing knee to knee or toe to toe with the client.
So I learned something here too when we went through this process. I would have known that, but you say, where did these steps come from? And that's straight out of the guidelines for the state of Georgia as far as what they're being tested on. And this was done by, we actually did the capture at Athens Tech, one of the technical schools. They were considered to be one of the top performing schools as far as their students had a higher success rate as far as graduation passing that initial exam. And to show you as far as other things you can do with these tools, and I wanted to kind of go over to the animation side now. When we talk about how sticky information can be, do you remember it? Do you understand it instantly when you're first seeing it, but how much do you walk away from it and retain afterwards? And that's why I wanted to kind of show you an example with surgery here as far as external fixator. So I'm going to show you first what the X-Fix is in about 40 seconds.
The X-Fix field kit includes threaded self-tapping pins that screw into the bone. A configurable drill brace serves to both drill the pins and tighten clamps. The multi-pin clamps help to align pins for parallel placement. Angle posts fit on the clamps and allow the X-Fix to assume a variety of configurations. Rod clamps mount on the angle post in order to secure the carbon rod, which forms the frame. The X-Fix.
So in about 40 seconds, you see how it all comes together. And where this really became valuable was out in the field because combat medics would have a tablet with them, and they could use this at the time for referencing what you're seeing here. Now, the significance before I show you this next piece of it is that they had this equipment out there with them, but oftentimes they were skittish about using it because this is orthopedic surgery and you're talking to somebody that's a medic, not a surgeon, to do this under extreme circumstances. And because they didn't do it where they should have done it in some of these areas, people were losing their legs as a result of it. So when I was up at Walter Reed, I had a surgeon that took me into a rehab room and said, we need more of this out there. So now that being the case, we have some of the folks that are actually on the medic side of it, and we had basically a master chief in the Navy that stopped his team when we were sharing this, and he had training on this where they had done this on live goats, but they'd never done it on a person, and he said this was bringing it all back as far as that instant recall. But what I want to show you next is the animation, is understanding the pin placement itself, and the significance there was when I was back at the Pentagon giving a brief. I had somebody that said, can you pull this example up? I told them it was kind of intense, and they said, no, we have a reason for that. And there was somebody that was on the phone, wasn't there for the in-person presentation, and she said, I got to tell you, I saw this 3 years ago, and I can still remember how to do it. So if somebody asks you, do you know anything about X-Fix? After seeing what I show you, you'll probably remember it after this viewing. So let's take a look here as far as the pin placement that I'm talking about. And we're going to use the mentoring. I'm going to jump to it to show you what the expert would tell you before you do the procedure.
The kit includes a pin wrench brace.
So here's the mentor.
Apply direct pressure and drill into the first cortex. Entering the cortex, you will feel an increase in resistance. Resistance decreases as you enter the medullary canal. Continue turning. A second increase in resistance indicates you have reached the far cortex. Continue drilling with 5 complete revolutions to put the tip through the second cortex.
And the gal that was on the phone, she said she didn't have the terminology exactly right because she wasn't in medicine or involved with medicine, but she says, I can tell you, it gets easier when you go through the middle of the bone, and when you get to the far side of it, you turn it 5 more times. So that's what she was remembering after seeing this 3 years before. It was that sticky as far as being there with her. And the last thing that I wanted to kind of show you here is kind of the interactive nature of what you can do with this once you get to the mixed reality side. And let's take a look here. So, for example, and we'll go into this, and this happens to be on an aircraft, but I basically can manipulate it. And if I wanted to take a look in a certain area,
3 corrosion principles combine in composite, LO configured aircraft that compound the problem. They are capillary action, oxygen concentration cell, and accelerated anionic reaction.
So it can give me animation if I want that. When we get into other areas, it can actually play those elements that you have out of the applications that I was showing you a minute ago. So kind of show you an example.
Exposed areas of the TEF inboard wing hinge attach lugs, primarily around bushings for corrosion. Inspect the exposed areas of the TEF inboard wing hinge.
So you kind of have the ideas as far as being able to touch with it and work with it. Your device would actually recognize an aircraft, and then you could pull that information up. If we came away from this and I was showing you a control system, and here it's going to show you how the navigation works, because it goes through a little exercise so that you understand how to interact with this. And so I'm just quickly moving through this as far as understanding that. But then we get to doing an assembly process. And so we're going through, and then we go to another step. And you can see that it's kind of guided as I go through this. It's going to show me where to place the step. So if I want to go without the guidance to see if I really got it right as far as doing the assembly process, I can turn it off, and then I can go in here. And so you're seeing how you can interact with it, and you can go as far as you really want to with these tools. When I said don't think about any restrictions with the devices. If you have HoloLens in front of you, over your eyes, I should say, you can go hands-free with these tools. If you've got a tablet, you can work with it in the same material in a means such as this. So again, it's the same material. It's just a question of how you want to view it, how you want to work with it. So I'm going to come out of this, and we'll go back to our PowerPoint here just a second. And we'll go here. Yeah. Kevin, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay. A lot of what Mike has shown is that there's some tremendous return on investments, okay? And in the examples that he showed you, it was getting training very quickly at a very reasonable price. One of the things that I used to enjoy is that when I was the director of training and I owned all the logistics training in the Army, I had a boss that wanted to scale down and accelerate training wherever possible. We knew that there were some basic things like hydraulics training for the Army. When we employed this type of technology, we went from 40 hours of time for basic hydraulic training to 24 hours. And you go, okay, so you say basically, 16 hours. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is 16 hours is 2 8-hour training days in the Army. One training day in the Army cost big Army $7,000 per kid per day. I saved 2 days. That's $14,000 times the throughput. The first year we did that at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, we had over 235 people trained using that accelerated knowledge transfer concept. That saved the Army $3.4 million the first year we did it. How much did it cost the Army to put that into play? $50,000. That's the type of ROI you're talking about with this powerful of nature. So as we talked to at the beginning, the manufacturing workforce in America realizes that the time clock is ticking very quickly, and there's a lot of baby boomers that are aging out of the workforce and retiring. That sector knows that it's got to adapt and ensure that this valuable technical knowledge is not lost. At the same time, you hear the current administration saying that they want to do more manufacturing in America. So there's going to be an even larger outcry for training in the manufacturing arena. Okay. So although many firms said that, they're aware of this, very few were actively pursuing any types of training steps to mitigate the related risks that we've already reviewed in the survey results. We know that people have to have strategies that try to put together a multi-generational interaction to help protect themselves from knowledge loss while still preparing for that next future generation to come up behind them and continue in the manufacturing industry's throughput, okay? So how can we help? We can help by working with our educational partners to arrange for any follow-on virtual or in-person visits, okay, to help further discussion and demonstration of where these types of applications could help specific manufacturer clients that you have get with the right subject matter experts and put together potential pilots, okay? One of the things that we know is effective is sitting down with Mike's folks and looking at their applications and looking at what performance metrics the client wants to improve in and what are the potential ROIs, okay? And so after a small discussion of that, the client then is going to prioritize, where they want their development, maybe come to a decision to do an initial pilot application. I can guarantee you this, that if one of your customers has this done and they want just 1 or 2 steps done as a pilot, they'll come back for more because they will see the unbelievable return on investment the first time it's used in their backyard. Next chart, please. At this point, what I'd like to do is ask anybody who's got any questions to go down into the navigational taskbar and put any questions that you've got in the Q&A down there, okay? I do have one question already that's been submitted, Mike. How do you recommend building these types of training aids for quick use in customized corporate training?
Well, in customized corporate training, we would have the assumption that somebody's actually performing that training right now. In other words, exactly what the message is that you want to get across. And then we would be talking with that individual as far as determining what those points are and give them some ideas as far as what we could do with the visuals on the corporate side there. So we have what was traditionally trained with PowerPoint slides before. And so we can actually work with an environment like that where we can pull up examples. So instead of just being the PowerPoint slide, you can show them software that you're talking about. You can show them tools that they might be working with on the corporate side there. And we'll bring all that to bear so that you have it right there. It's more than just a video. It's a library as far as those elements. So if you're in a learning environment there and you're pointing them to look at something, we can show them samples of what they're looking at, but they can also be linked directly to those elements in the company. It's because once you put it in a learning management system, it's got the ability to do all that.
Right. Very good. Hopefully I think that answered that question very well. Thanks. We've got another question here. Can you describe the production and filming process that you do with a customer, and how much time and resources does all that take to put that into place?
Well, basically, we usually, again, we want to work with a learning topic that's already been defined. And so once you get to that point that you know what you want to get across, give us that as an example. We like to produce a storyboard to capture to, And we can take that from a PowerPoint. We can take it from notes that you might have in a situation like that. When we're talking about processes out on the line, normally you have procedures. It might be a 10-point or a 20-point process. We want to know what those points are. We'll ask the client, how long does it take to demonstrate that process? And we don't mean quickly, just going through it at an average speed. So a process that can be demonstrated in an hour can usually be captured in about 4 hours. And that's why I was showing you some of those examples with Toyota, with the aircraft examples there. Those were examples that were typically an hour long or less. We captured them in an hour. We had them ready for review the next day. As far as how much does it require in resources, we would ask that you have an expert that understands that process, and then another person or persons that can perform that process, so that that expert can be there overseeing what's going on as we go step by step through that process. Because as I mentioned before, we clean up the instructions themselves, and that expert needs to be prepared to change steps in that process if we find errors in there. There's something going on that's not being described. Oh, we need to add a step, or we need to do something in a separate order. So usually it's going to take probably 2 people in an organization to produce something that way. And then once we edit it into the format that you saw, pretty much like a final format, then we put it in an online editing environment where you can read it, you can hear it and see it, and then you've got a comment box below. So you could have those 2 people involved with that, but you could have a dozen people looking at it. And so there's only one person that's in charge, and usually it's that expert, and they'll see what everybody else makes as far as comments on it. If everybody likes it, they'll hit the thumbs up like it's good. If there's something that needs to be changed because there's comments coming up, they'll hit thumbs down and they'll say, we want you to re-edit it this way. So it avoids a lot of going back and forth with emails. Everybody can see what everybody thinks of each screen as go along. Once everything's been approved all the way through, and usually the re-review is just those items that were kicked back. Anything else is already done. Once they're all approved, then we program in less than 60 seconds. And so that's pretty much the process, and that's how you can go through it so quickly.
Wow. The next question I see here is can a client who's already got quality video on hand provide that resource to you to save some of the production cost?
Absolutely. And we can take that footage in different formats. When we finish with it in the formats that you saw here, programmed in HTML5, these are MP4 videos. So you saw the file structure that I gave you before. In fact, some people will take those videos out of there and use them other places, like in a PowerPoint presentation. So it makes it easy that way. But bottom line is, whatever format it comes to us, we can transition into what you see there. We can edit it and go through the process that we talked about there. We caution folks because it's as good as the quality of your video. So we shoot everything in 6K now, and so it's very crisp. You can zoom in on it and it's still crisp. If it's fuzzy when it comes to us, it's going to be that way. So that's the only caveat that we put out there.
Okay. The next question I see here is, okay, how is AKT able to get these training applications from concept to filming to production and a final product so fast? And you mentioned that you were able to do this in literally hours or days. I mean, I can remember where products like this, you take 8 to 10 months and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and everything that you're talking about here, Mike, is weeks, days, and hours. How are you able to do it so fast?
I'd say a lot of it, Kevin, is techniques, and obviously there's some proprietary nature to that. What we give you belongs to you as a client, so that's not proprietary. But as far as how we get there, we streamlined this process as far as how we approach it. So when we're out there doing the capture with you, it's very efficient. It's not that we do 2 or 3 takes on something. We capture that process one step at a time, and we make sure that we got it and then move on to the next step. So you only have to demonstrate it once, but we capture it right the first time. We know how to get in there with the right equipment, how to light it so you don't have backlighting problems as far as shadowing. We'll use borescopes if we have to. We have extremely small cameras. We can get into places that the user will never be able to physically look inside there. They might be able to feel it with their fingers, but we have the tools to get in there. So it's the tools, it's the techniques, it's how we use it, and then it's the editing process is very fast, and because of, again, how we actually handle it. But that's what enables us, if we have an hour-long process, to have it ready for review the following morning, and
Okay.
it's just that quick. So you typically 24 to 48 hours is the turnaround for these.
All right. You mentioned giving the product to the customer. Okay. Typically, what I refer to as a tech data package there is what's, what comes down as a result of a product delivery. Okay. Is there a tech data package that's created with every application, and who keeps that at the end of the development? Do you guys keep it, or do you share that with the client?
We give everything to the client. So when we say there's nothing proprietary that's delivered, it's up to the client as far as what they want to do with it. So they control it at that point. And as far as where it resides, typically, if it goes into a manual, if the client prefers, we can go ahead and link it into the manual in a PDF document. If they have their item, typically they're loading it themselves, and that file structure that I showed you gives the manager of the item everything they need for that. If it's going into a learning management system, then they'll want it Scorm wrapped. And so each one of those examples I showed you is considered by itself to be a standard content object. So we'll Scorm wrap it for the client so they can just load it into the LMS.
Okay, so if they want it Scorm package, you've got the ability to do that. You just need to know that up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what percentage of your clients actually use Scorm packaging as a requirement?
On the commercial side, I would say probably 50%. But on the military side, most of these are going into manuals, and so of some form, and so they don't need Scorm for that.
Okay. The next question I see here is I'm hearing these voices in your various applications. Are those real voices or digital? And what's the difference in cost in using digital versus real voice?
Well, it's both. We produce everything in synthetic voice to begin with. There's no extra cost for that. And then you noticed some of what I was playing had professional voiceover. That's because the client says we really want it professionally voiced. How much is it going to cost? It's typically, for what you were seeing today, hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands. Why would somebody want synthetic? Because we can do same day updates. If we do professional voice, then we have to get that person back into a studio, and it may be a day, it may be several days, depending on their availability. And so there's differences there. So it's really the client's preference on that as far as what they want to go. But if something were to be updated and it's just a screen, it's not much a professional voice. It's just usually the time delay and a little, a few dollars, but that's it.
Okay. I did see one comment from someone that wanted to thank us for our service. I appreciate those remarks. We got great bosses and great people that put up with all your silly questions for 30 years. It's easy to serve. So I appreciate that kind comment. I'm looking to see if we have any other questions here. Okay, let's go to the last slide then, Mike, if we can. Okay. First and foremost, Mike, I want to thank you for being a great co-presenter. I learn 5 new things every time you and I get together and have another demonstration. I learned at least 3 or 4, even since we had practice sessions for today. So thanks again for helping educate this old Army guy. Also, thanks to our great sponsors, okay, Core Education, ProTrain, CompTIA, Xenograde, FA Davis, Aceware Systems, AMCA, HRCP, and our friends at CIW, for which, without their help and continued sponsorship, we cannot put this on for free. Just a reminder for those that are going to continue throughout the day with us here, our next presentation is at 1 o'clock. and we will have a presentation from Daniel Sagihi about career demand in the healthcare industry and those certifications that are important for your students to be thinking about. We also have a presentation after lunch at 3 o'clock on how a CE program, a CE organization can turn data into dollars. And that's going to be given by our friends at Aceware. And then we've got a great wrap up with a workforce development panel of experts from a couple of different states around the nation to tell us about best practices and what they've been doing to help service their customers in this post-pandemic era. So once again, Mike, thank you for your great support to date. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this has been informative to our many viewers today. And I wish you a great rest of your day, and hopefully you'll join us for some more fun in SETI to close out the rest of your day. Have a great day, folks. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.